welcome to Pajama Storytime. Princes and princesses, knights, dragons, magical animals, and of course, as always, our royal kings and queens, mommies and daddies. If you guys are ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, of course, with our hi hello song. So if you guys ready, in 3, 2, 1. Hi, hello, and how are you? How are you? How are you? Hi, hello, and how are you? We're glad you're here today. All right, and we've got, of course, our Follow Me song, because when we take our royal prince or princess lessons, we learn how to follow directions, and Magic Rue's here gonna help you guys, okay? He decided he doesn't want to be a prince or a knight or anything like that. He wants to be Magic Rue, so this is his magic belly button jewel. You guys ready? Follow me, it's as easy as can be. Follow me, 1, 2, 3, clap your hands, spin around, bend your knees, touch the ground. Follow me, it's as easy as can be. Follow me, 1, 2, 3, wiggle your fingers, tippy toe, stretch up high, wave hello. Follow me, it's as easy as can be. Follow me, 1, 2, 3, flap your arms, stomp your feet, pat your back, take a seat. Alright, good job, you guys. So if y'all are ready for a story, we've got to sing our reading song first in 3, 2, 1. Reading books is very fun, very fun, very fun. Reading books is very fun. I love reading, right? I love reading. So our first story is The Princess Knight, going along with our weekly theme, by Cornelia Funk and Kirsten Meyer. So you guys didn't know you could be 2 things at once, huh? King Wilfred the Worthy had 3 sons. He brought them up just as his father had brought him up, and they were taught all the things he had been taught. He wanted them to be better than his best knights. They learned riding and jousting, fighting with swords, and good table manners too. They learned how to stride around proudly and how to shout very loudly. And, perhaps most important for princes, they learned how to give orders to their nursemaids, their servants, their dogs, and their horses. Then, Queen Violetta had a daughter, but the queen died when the baby was born. So the little girl was called Violetta. No one would dare tell the king how to do anything, especially how to raise his little girl. So he decided to teach her the same lessons he had taught his sons. Even though she was so small, she could hardly lift a sword at all. Her brothers teased her and called her names. Itsy bitsy little Vi, little girl can't hurt a fly. And they would boast that they were so strong, even the most spirited horse would obey them. Then they'd strike the heads off practice dummies so hard that the head would fly right over the castle walls. and they would laugh and laugh at their little sister as she struggled to mount a horse in her heavy armor, as if it were the funniest thing they'd ever seen. "Oh, Emma," said Violetta to her nursemaid one evening, while Emma soothed the little girl's bruises, "I'll never be as strong as my brothers." "Not as strong, maybe, but you are 3 times as clever," said Emma sensibly. "Why not ask your father to stop teaching you all this silly fighting and let you learn something else instead? Embroidery, perhaps, or weaving, or playing the flute. Something useful?" But Violetta shook her head. No, she said. "That would only make my brothers laugh louder." So Emma said no more, for she knew the princess was more determined than all the 3 princes put together. From that night on, Violetta slipped out of the castle in secret while the rose gardener's son kept watch for her. She started to practice all the things her brothers could already do so much better. Violetta practiced in her own way, without shouting and without using her spurs. Indeed, she was very quiet about it, as quiet as the night itself. Then came the day before Violetta's 16th birthday, and the king asked to see her. "Violetta," said King Wilfred, "I'm going to hold a jousting tournament in honor of your birthday. The victory prize will bring the bravest knights in the land flocking to the castle." "What will that prize be, father?" asked Violetta, wondering which horse she would ride, which of her suits of armor would be the lightest, and which plume she would wear in her helmet. "The prize," said King Wilfred, "will be your hand in marriage. So put on your finest gown and practice your prettiest smile." Violetta turned as red as the roses beside the castle moat. "What?" she cried. "You want me to marry some dimwit in a tin suit? Just look at your own knights. They whip their horses and they can't even write their own names." Her father was so angry he locked Violetta up in the castle tower all by herself. Not until the moon was shining high in the sky did the king tell Violetta's youngest brother to let her out. "Stop crying, little sister," said Violetta's brother. "I'll make sure to win the tournament myself. You certainly can't marry me." But Violetta shook her head and wiped her eyes on the hem of her dress. "Thank you," she said, "but I think I'd better just see to it myself." The next day, the field behind the castle was crowded with knights who had come to fight in the tournament. King Wilfred sat down to watch. Little did he know that it wasn't Violetta who sat beside him. It was her nursemaid Emma. She wore Violetta's best dress and a veil over her face. The real Violetta had put on her blackest armor and saddled her favorite horse. She rode into the arena with the other knights and gave her title as Sir No Name. Trumpets sounded, and the tournament to win the princess's hand began. Knight after knight rode into the arena. Sigurd the Strong, Harold the Hardy, Percy the Pitiless, but Sir No Name defeated them all. He even knocked the king's sons off their horses and into the dust. By the end, there was no one left who was willing to fight, and Sir No Name rode over to the king to receive the victory prize. All those knights in the dirt. Can you guys believe that? "Where do you come from, Sir No Name?" asked the king. "You have brought honor to your family, and my daughter should think herself lucky to take your hand in marriage." "Oh, I don't think so," Sir No Name replied, raising his helmet. "Hello, father," said Violetta. "What's the prize for a princess knight?" And for the first time in his life, her father, the king, was speechless. Violetta turned to the defeated knights sitting battered and bruised on their horses. "Very well," she said. "I shall choose my own prize." "I hereby proclaim that no one will ever win Princess Violetta's hand in marriage without first defeating Sir No-Name. Then she turned on her horse and rode away, far, far away, and she didn't return for a year and a day. And when she did, why, her father, King Wilfred the Worthy, gave her a horse as black as her armor, and nobody, not even her brothers, challenged the princess ever again. And who did she marry? Well, if you must know, many years later, she married the rose gardener's son and lived happily ever after. The end. So you guys see, you can be two things at once, a prince or a princess and a knight. And speaking of which, our next story is Dragon Night. But not night like the last story, night like nighttime, like Pajama Storytime. And this one is by J.R. Krause. So let's see what's happening in this one. George is afraid of the night. It's too dark with the lights off, too quiet with everyone asleep, and being alone makes everything worse. That probably does, huh, you guys? Suddenly, George's favorite book falls to the floor with a thump. The pages flutter open, sparkling and crackling. A brilliant light fills the room, and a dragon steps out. George has never seen a real dragon before. "Shh, I'm running away," whispers the dragon. "I'm afraid of the night." "I'm afraid of the night too," says Georgie. "Then let's run away together," says the dragon. Georgie scales the dragon's bumpy back. Together they launch from the window. The dragon spreads its great wings and up they soar, high into the dark night sky. Far below, a carnival sparkles like pirate treasure. Merry music floats up with joyful cries. "There's no night down there," says Georgie. "There's no night," replies the dragon slowly. "But there is a castle." So they fly on. Soon, an endless blanket of city lights shines below. Horns honk and sirens wail on the busy streets. "There's no night down there," says Georgie. "There's no night," replies the dragon carefully, "but there is a king." See it there? So they fly on. Next, they soar over a bright, noisy baseball game. The crowd roars like a magnificent waterfall. "There's no night down there," says Georgie. "But there is," replies the dragon, on a very peculiar horse. You guys see that knight there? Georgie and the dragon fly on quietly. "I think we're talking about two different things," says the dragon gently. Georgie is thinking, "But why is a big dragon like you afraid of the night?" "Because the night hates me," cries the dragon. "He carries a heavy sword and he always wants to fight." Georgie doesn't know what to say. He never thought of it that way before. They sail silently down to a grassy field. "You know," says the dragon, "the night is dark, but it's not always scary." Georgie isn't so sure. "Look," says the dragon, "without the darkness of night, we wouldn't see the stars." Georgie had never seen shooting stars before. "Listen," says the dragon, "the night is quiet and peaceful." Georgie hears crickets play a soothing song. Before long, he curls up against the warm dragon and drifts off to sleep. But night doesn't last forever. As the sun rises, Georgie and the dragon swoop back home. Now the dragon is worried. "In the daylight, everyone can see me." "You need to hide," says Georgie. "But there's no place big enough for the dragon to hide. Now Georgie is worried. "You belong in the book," he says. "But I want to stay here with you," cries the dragon. A tear bubbles up and steams like hot tea. The dragon quietly sniffs. "I'm still afraid of the night." "I have an idea," says Georgie. "I'll make a new book for you with a friendly knight." "Will the knight carry a heavy sword?" asks the dragon. "Instead of a sword, the knight will have a baseball and a glove," replies Georgie. "Will the knight want to fight?" "Instead of fighting, the knight loves to play catch." "What if the knight doesn't like me?" "Don't worry," says Georgie. "I'll help you." He turns the page and draws a carnival with a carousel, a candy shop filled with tasty treats, a big empty baseball field, and the knight waiting for a friend. "The book is ready," says Georgie. "You'll like this story." "Thank you," replies the dragon. A dazzling light fills the room once again as the dragon steps into the new book and gently waves goodbye. Now, every night after a flight, Georgie and the dragon snuggle up and read their new favorite book. "Goodnight," says the dragon as Georgie turns the last page. "Good night," says Georgie. Then together in the dark and quiet night, they fall asleep. The end. Oh, that was a really good story. And speaking of falling asleep, it's almost time for us to get ready for bed. But of course, we gotta have our dance party one more time because you guys have done such a good job. So, if you guys are ready. Oops. I think we're gonna have to pause it. Hold on.